So, Georgia, as I said at the top of the show, we're keeping an eye on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is seeking a Florida specific paramilitary force. And this is a force that he wants outside of control of the federal government. Now, most governors, or all governors, have access to the reserve. They have access to the National Guard there that is underneath their control. And in a lot of sense, the governors are seen as the commander in chief of their local forces there. But this is not what Ron DeSantis wants. Ron DeSantis wants a paramilitary force that is completely outside of federal control. According to theguardian.com, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has made calls for the state to create its own paramilitary force outside of federal control and is seeking and asked for funding for a new Florida State Guard to handle state-specific emergencies. Now, Georgia, if you, and I know you have, but if any of our listeners have been following along with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, we know that this is problematic. We know that he is positioning himself and vying to try to become the next president of the United States, or at least run on the ticket with Donald Trump. We also know that he is leading the charge in killing as many people as possible from COVID-19. His policies are exposing as many Floridians to COVID-19 as possible. So far, they've had 61,000 Floridians die from COVID-19. And this is also a governor who has no regard, no respect for the federal government when it's underneath the control of the party that he doesn't like, the Democratic Party. That said, he is now seeking a paramilitary force. And Georgia, if you ask me, I think that this is a clear and present threat for a governor to be seeking a force that can be controlled outside of the influence of the federal government.
Well, and Ben, it brings me back to this question that we often ask about President Biden, and if he is truly doing enough, not just to advance new legislation and funding and different measures like that, but if he's doing enough to push back against these Republicans who really do not have our best interests in mind. And on the other side of that, if he is doing enough to push back on the Democrats who are complicit. I feel like we have not seen Biden step up against individuals like DeSantis. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts are about Biden's, is he, maybe, and some people might feel like that's not his place.
To be quite honest with you, it is his place, particularly when we have these governors who are doing everything they can to harm their citizens. There's no question about whether or not Ron DeSantis is implementing policies that are getting the Floridians killed from COVID-19. There's no question about that. And now that we see that he's seeking to become the commander in chief of his own military force, that should be a very clear signal that we're dealing with people who are not stopping at January 6th. I want to repeat that. We are dealing with the faction in this country that is not stopping with January 6th. And if Ron DeSantis is allowed to get his hands on a military force, a paramilitary force, this will be the next step towards this coup that they have been seeking all this time, Georgia. So to answer your question very directly, I think that the president of the United States needs to speak up even louder.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we haven't seen him do that. But yeah. we're not surprised. People knew when Biden was elected, for the most part, he was the lesser of two evils. People were just happy that Trump wasn't going to be in office anymore.
That's right.
But people weren't extremely confident that he was going to be able to lead this nation to a place that would produce true equity for communities of color. And so we're seeing that play out. He's a bit passive. He has his own allegiances. And right. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. No, it's very unfortunate. And I'm looking at how clearly the opposition is making their intentions known, Georgia, right? The Republicans, they're not mincing words. They're clear. They want to roll back the entirety of the 20th century. They want to undo any sense of Medicaid, Medicare. They want to undo Social Security. They want to get rid of a woman's right to choose. They're already working on that. They want to expose as many people to COVID-19. Like, these things are clear. And I don't know what else the Republicans need to do to make it clear to the Democrats that are in power that they should take them deadly serious. They marched up the steps on January 6th to take over this government. And yet and still, we have Democrats who are kind of laissez-faire, come see, come side. Like, what are we doing here, Mr. President? What are we doing here, Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi? What are we doing when we have a very real threat? And now Governor DeSantis is asking for a paramilitary force on top of all of it.
I was also hoping that, and, you know, I don't know what the legal grounds for this would be, but we've seen the DOJ step in situations like the murder of George Floyd, right? Where you're able to use federal prosecution power to bring charges against somebody. Where is the DOJ on Rittenhouse? Where is the Biden administration at on ensuring that some form of justice is served for those two protesters who were killed in Kenosha? You know, I think, you know, seeing Biden fail to lead on certain measures like that, where he's standing up for communities of color, and then seeing him in this case where he falls back. He's standing by, watching and allowing this to unfold without any interference. And so it's just, it concerns me, because it's not just about what Biden is bringing forth and but it's also on what he's not bringing forth and where he's not interfering. That to me, it speaks volumes.
That's it, Georgia. That's the part right there, especially when we look at the DeSantis case study, right? We look at Ron DeSantis and what he's trying to do. And I have to ask myself the question, either the Democratic leadership, and I don't mean just Joe Biden, I mean the people behind the scenes, and the donors and all the people who make the Democratic apparatus work. Either they are completely incompetent or they are complicit, because you cannot look at the writings on the wall and just say everything is fine. Now, if they are saying everything is fine, then they need to be put out of office, because everything is clearly not fine when you have the Florida governor trying to get his own military force, and to put to boot, to insult to injury, right? Once he gets this military force, I guarantee you he's going to declare states' rights privilege, his right to operate outside of the federal government. So the Department of Justice, and probably not the Department of Defense, would be able to stop this Republican governor from wielding that paramilitary force however he wants. And I do believe the Democratic Party should see this very clearly.